The moment a group unites against one person, they have unknowingly declared that person greater than them all. Think about that for a second. In history, the most devastating downfalls didn't come from outsiders. They came from groups who thought they could suffocate the light of one individual. From ancient courts to modern boardrooms, jealous cliques have always tried the same tired trick: surround, slander, and sabotage. But here's the thing. They always forget that the very act of targeting someone only makes that person stand out more. And let's be honest, what kind of group project is it when the assignment is take down one person? That's not strategy, that's insecurity doing group therapy without a licensed professional. They thought teaming up made them powerful, but really it just exposed how powerless they felt in the presence of your authenticity. Research in psychology even shows that envy is contagious. When one person feels it, it spreads like wildfire through a group. That's why jealous circles form, not because you're weak, but because your presence forces people to confront their own lack. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply existed too boldly for people who survive on pretense. So buckle up, because this isn't just about petty jealousy. This is about how a group that thought they could bury you is now being buried by their own schemes. They've never run across a person like you before, and the shockwave of their downfall will prove it. Number 1. You were never in their category to begin with. They thought you were just another person they could size up, pull apart, and compete with. That was their first and biggest mistake. You were never in their category to begin with. They were looking at you through the same lens they use on each other: status, numbers, appearance, money, and surface-level recognition. But none of those things ever defined you, which is why their calculations kept failing. They kept trying to box you in with labels that simply don't apply. The truth is, people get jealous when they believe someone has taken something they wanted for themselves. But here's where it gets deeper. You never even wanted what they were fighting over. You weren't chasing their approval, their spotlight, or their version of success. You were walking a path that didn't require their stage or their permission. That's why their obsession with you looks ridiculous, because they are competing for a prize you were never even running after. What unnerved them most is that your identity wasn't fragile like theirs. They are constantly seeking validation to prove they belong, but your confidence comes from somewhere they can't touch. It's not built on applause, connections, or the shifting rules of popularity. It's rooted in something they can't fabricate. And when someone stands in that kind of wholeness, it terrifies insecure people. You weren't supposed to survive without their approval, and you weren't supposed to rise without their help. Yet here you are, living proof that they overestimated their power. That's why nothing they tried worked. They wanted you to crumble under rejection, but you stood taller. They expected you to beg for entry, but you created your own lane. They thought isolating you would weaken you, but it only revealed how unnecessary they really are to your growth. And the longer they watched, the more uncomfortable it became. Deep down, they knew you weren't competing with them. You were exposing that there was never any competition at all. This is why their jealousy grew so toxic. You reminded them that they are replaceable in a world where they thought they were irreplaceable. And you reminded them that someone can walk into a room and shift everything without even playing the same game. They've never run across a person like you before because people like you don't fit into categories. They redefine them. Number 2, their attack was actually a confession. When a group decides to gang up on one person, that act alone is already a confession. It's them saying without words, "We can't take you on individually, so we need backup." Jealousy doesn't unite people unless the person they're targeting carries something too heavy for one person to handle. Their attack against you was proof that you had something bigger, brighter, and stronger than all of them combined. They would never admit it out loud, but their behavior exposed it. Think about it. If you were ordinary, they wouldn't have wasted their time. Ordinary doesn't demand a strategy. Ordinary doesn't cause sleepless nights, whispered meetings, and coordinated plans. Ordinary doesn't pull people together to fight it. They only formed that alliance against you because, whether they liked it or not, you disrupted their sense of control. You became the mirror they didn't want to look into, the reminder that, no matter how loud they are, their noise still doesn't measure up to real presence. What makes this even more revealing is how they had to validate each other in the process. They couldn't stand firm on their own, so they leaned on each other's bitterness to make their envy feel justified. Every lie, every rumor, every plot was a desperate way of saying, "We're scared of what this person represents and we can't face it alone." They thought they were attacking you, but in reality they were exposing themselves. And here's where it gets almost ironic. The more they tried to tear you down, the clearer the confession became. It was written in their actions. Your existence unsettled them. Your resilience reminded them of their fragility. Your growth made them realize how stagnant they really were. Their jealousy wasn't about you taking anything from them. It was about you proving what they never had in the first place. So while they thought they were diminishing you, they were actually broadcasting your significance. They put a spotlight on you by the very way they treated you. People watching could see it too, because when a group obsesses over one person, the question becomes, what makes that person so powerful that they need all this energy to bring them down? And that's the confession they'll never escape. Their attack was really their admission that they could never stand next to you without numbers. Number 3. They didn't plan for your endurance. Jealousy always underestimates endurance. That's why they came at you with such confidence, convinced their schemes would knock you off balance quickly. They believed you would react the way they would if the tables were turned, fold under pressure, lash out in desperation, or retreat into silence. But that's where they miscalculated. They assumed you were fueled by the same shallow strength they live by, forgetting that what carries you isn't man-made. They didn't plan for the fact that you were reinforced by something much bigger than yourself. The truth is, people who act out of envy rarely think long-term. They move on impulse, driven by the adrenaline of trying to get a quick win. They don't stop to consider how deep your roots go or how much you've already survived before they even stepped into the picture. That's why they threw everything at you all at once, expecting you to collapse under the weight of their attacks. What they didn't realize is that you were already built to outlast storms far heavier than their plots. You had been tested long before their jealousy showed up, and endurance was already in your DNA. This is why their frustration kept growing. Every time they thought, this should have been enough to break them, you kept standing. Every time they whispered, surely this will silence them, you kept speaking. Every time they predicted, this will destroy their name, you walked out with even more credibility. Your survival was their biggest shock, because it forced them to admit that the tools they use to break others don't work on you, and nothing threatens jealous people more than realizing their usual methods fall flat. Their mistake was believing resilience is something you can fake or borrow. It's not. Endurance can't be copied, and it can't be stolen. It comes from battles fought in silence, scars earned in private, and strength refined when nobody was watching. They didn't know your story. They only knew their jealousy. And because of that ignorance, they launched attacks they had no power to finish. So now they sit in disbelief, watching the same person they expected to crumble keep rising in plain sight. Their schemes didn't break you. They revealed the unshakable foundation underneath you. And that endurance is exactly what guarantees their downfall, because they will run out of attacks long before you run out of strength. Number 4. Their unity was built on hatred, not strength. They may have appeared unstoppable as a group, like a wall no one could penetrate, but the truth is their unity was nothing more than a fragile illusion. What held them together wasn't loyalty, respect, or genuine strategy, it was hatred. Every conversation, every plan, every whispered agreement was fueled by envy and projection, not real strength. They depended on shared bitterness to maintain the facade of power. And that kind of bond is always unstable because it's reactive, not constructive. The problem with hatred as glue is that it can't withstand pressure. It's volatile, unpredictable, and corrosive. Every argument, every clash of egos, every moment of insecurity slowly eats away at the foundation. Unlike true alliances built on trust and purpose, theirs only survived as long as the target remained under threat. The moment their focus shifted or the target grew beyond their reach, the cracks appeared. Their energy was entirely consumed by obsession. They weren't working toward creation or growth. They were consuming themselves in the attempt to destroy. Hatred demanded constant reinforcement, which meant they had to keep plotting, keep whispering, keep coordinating, just to maintain the illusion of unity. It was exhausting and unsustainable, and deep down, they knew it. That's why jealousy-driven groups always implode from the inside out. They can never build something lasting because nothing real connects them. And as they fell apart, every failure became a testament to the fragility of what they thought was strength. The louder they tried to appear, the more obvious it became that their power was hollow. Their collective presence was only ever threatening on the surface. Beneath it, the instability of hatred made them easy to predict, easy to outlast, and easy to expose. In the end, the very thing they relied on to feel powerful, their shared animosity toward you, was what guaranteed their undoing. Hatred can motivate, but it cannot create. It can bind temporarily, but it cannot sustain. Their downfall was inevitable because the structure they built had no real foundation. And when structures are built on envy instead of integrity, collapse is not a matter of if, but when. Number 5. Your existence exposed their dependency. Without you, their entire world would have felt empty. Every word they spoke, every plan they hatched, every ounce of energy they wasted was directed at you. They didn't realize it, but by focusing so intently on bringing you down, they revealed the truth. Their sense of significance depended entirely on your presence. They needed someone to compare themselves to, someone to criticize, someone to obsess over, and you filled that role perfectly, unwillingly but undeniably. They believed targeting you gave them control, but in reality it showed how powerless they were without a point of focus. Their identity became tangled with yours. Every insult, rumor, and scheme wasn't about improving themselves. It was about trying to steal a measure of the power they saw in you. They orbited your life like planets around a sun they could never touch, thinking proximity equaled influence. But in doing so, they surrendered their own autonomy. And the irony is that the more they tried to diminish you, the more they revealed their own dependence. Their obsession became the very evidence of their weakness. People outside that circle could see it. Their conversations, their actions, and their entire energy were fueled by one thing: you. They invested in drama, schemes, and manipulation, but the investment was never theirs to claim. It was borrowed from the attention you unknowingly demanded, and the more they tried, the deeper they sank into a cycle they could not escape, because the system they created to empower themselves only highlighted how powerless they truly were. Meanwhile, you moved through life building your own foundation, independent of their chaos. Your choices, your growth, your victories did not require their acknowledgement. You existed beyond their calculations, and that independence exposed their vulnerability. Their dependency wasn't just a weakness, it was a trap. And when someone's life is spent orbiting another, the moment they lose that gravitational pull is when collapse is inevitable. You became the center they never deserved, and in trying to take you down, they gave away the very power they were desperate to hold. Their focus on you didn't elevate them, it revealed them. Every scheme, every whisper, every jealous act was a marker of their own instability. And because you never needed them to define yourself, their obsession ensured their undoing, while proving, without a doubt, that their world revolved around someone they could never truly contain. Number 6. They couldn't replicate your source. Jealous groups are experts at imitation. They watch, they mimic, they try to steal anything that appears to give someone an edge. They look at your confidence, your success, your calm in the storm, and they think, if we copy that, we can beat them at their own game. But what they don't understand is that what you carry isn't surface level. It isn't something they can study, dissect, or replicate because it didn't originate from human approval, luck, or manipulation. Your strength, your clarity, your unshakable presence, your very essence comes from alignment with something far higher than their understanding. They can try to copy your gestures, your words, even your achievements, but imitation only works on the surface. They can walk the same steps, repeat the same actions, and mimic your routines, but none of it carries the weight that your source provides. That's why their attempts always feel hollow, why their energy never matches yours, and why their strategies fall flat every time. They are playing a game they cannot win because they are trying to win from the wrong level. The irony is that the harder they try to replicate you, the more obvious the difference becomes. Their efforts make it clearer to everyone around that your foundation is original and theirs is borrowed. People can sense authenticity. It radiates. You don't need to prove yourself because your alignment gives you a presence they cannot touch. Their jealousy only exposes that they are dependent on copying rather than creating, imitating rather than innovating, reacting rather than existing from a place of true power. What they fail to realize is that a source like yours cannot be undermined because it is unassailable. It doesn't fluctuate with opinion, competition, or pressure. Their tactics, their numbers, their envy, none of it can penetrate it. They can try to build replicas, but the replicas crumble the moment challenge hits while you remain steadfast. In every attempt to match you, they reveal the truth they can't face. Your source is beyond them. It can't be stolen, it can't be duplicated, and it can't be diminished by their jealousy. That's why no matter how many schemes they launch or how many circles they form, their attacks never land the way they hoped. They are chasing a shadow, and you are the original. Your foundation is untouchable, and their obsession only proves it. Number 7. Their strategy ignored the law of exposure. When a group comes together with the intent to destroy one person, they don't realize that in doing so, they are shining a glaring spotlight on themselves. Their every action, every whispered plan, every lie is now visible to anyone paying attention, and nothing stays hidden for long. By making their obsession public, they expose their weaknesses, their insecurities, and their intentions in a way that no single attack could ever reveal. The very strategy they believed would bury you becomes the instrument that reveals them. They act with the assumption that numbers equal power, that unity against a target makes them untouchable. But power isn't in collective envy. It's in substance, strategy, and integrity. Their every misstep is amplified because the energy they put toward targeting you doesn't disappear. It radiates. It spreads through their actions, conversations, and social circles, leaving a trail that anyone with eyes can follow. Each time they plot, their obsession broadcasts their fear and incompetence louder than their words ever could. The moment they formed a united front against you, their fate was sealed. Targeting you collectively meant they had to coordinate, synchronize, and justify every move to one another. That coordination, driven by jealousy, became a record of their own instability. Every false claim, every overreaction, every moment of cruelty became evidence of a group fractured by envy and driven by desperation. In trying to hide your power, they exposed their own lack of it. This is the paradox of the law of exposure. The more energy they invest in covering up your light, the brighter their own flaws shine. They thought their attacks would remain hidden, but obsession has a way of leaving fingerprints. Their plans, fueled by malice, broadcast who they truly are, and how fragile they really are. They became visible in a way they never intended, and the very act of ganging up against you created a trail of proof that could not be erased. By targeting you collectively, they made themselves the story. Their downfall wasn't contingent on your reaction. It was written the moment they decided to focus all that toxic energy on one person. The public obsession, the desperation, and the miscalculated strategies ensured that they could not escape the spotlight. And in exposing themselves, they guaranteed that their collapse would be inevitable, undeniable, and irreversible. Number 8. Their jealousy turned them into your publicists. Their jealousy, instead of diminishing you, became the engine of your visibility. Every attempt they made to slander you, every rumor they whispered, every exaggeration they fed into their circle acted like a megaphone, projecting your name further than you could have ever imagined. In their minds, they were crafting your downfall, but in reality, they were writing your marketing campaign. Their obsession ensured that more eyes were on you, more ears were tuned in, and more people became aware of your presence. When a group targets someone, they assume secrecy or intimidation will work. But jealousy doesn't operate quietly. It spills over into conversations, messages, social feeds, and gossip chains. Every false narrative they tried to spin left a breadcrumb trail for the curious and the discerning alike. People couldn't help but notice the disproportionate energy they spent on you. That energy alone communicated that there was something remarkable about you, something worth noticing, investigating, and remembering. The irony is sharp. While they thought they were burying you, they were constructing your platform. Every insult, every smear, every coordinated attack broadcasted your existence to people who might otherwise have never crossed your path. Their jealousy inadvertently created intrigue, curiosity, and fascination. Your name became synonymous with endurance, authenticity, and strength simply because they devoted so much effort trying to diminish it. Even the negativity they aimed at you had the effect of highlighting your value. People are drawn to what others obsess over, especially when the obsession is unwarranted. Their fixation became proof of your impact. The wider and louder they tried to shout your flaws, the more people leaned in to understand why their hatred was so intense. The very energy they poured into attacking you created a ripple effect, amplifying your presence far beyond what you could have achieved on your own. In trying to bury you, they unintentionally made you unavoidable. They became your unwitting promoters, projecting your significance to a broader audience and ensuring that everyone watching could see the truth. Their focus on you wasn't about you. It was about how much your existence disrupted their world. Their jealousy didn't hide you, it highlighted you, and that is the ultimate twist of irony in their failed attempt to control your narrative. Number 9. They underestimated the weight of isolation. They assumed that by isolating you, they had the power to weaken you. They thought that cutting you off from allies, support, or recognition would make you crumble, that the absence of their approval would leave you exposed and vulnerable. But what they failed to realize is that isolation doesn't have to be a prison. It can be a crucible. Alone, without the noise of their envy and schemes, you had the space to see clearly, to think sharply, and to understand the truth that they were too blind to notice. In their attempt to suffocate you, they stripped away distractions. Every fake conversation, every subtle manipulation, every pressure to conform evaporated, leaving only you and your clarity. What they meant as punishment became preparation. Isolation forced you to rely on your own judgment, trust your own instincts, and cultivate strength that wasn't borrowed or conditional. While they were busy orbiting your life with malice, you were quietly building a foundation that nobody could touch. The irony is in how their tactic backfired. They wanted to shrink your influence, but the solitude only amplified it. Free from their toxicity, you were able to see patterns, anticipate moves, and refine your path in ways they could never predict. What they imagined would break your spirit ended up refining it. They underestimated the resilience that comes from standing alone, the kind of power that isn't dependent on crowds or alliances, but emerges from clarity, focus, and determination. By the time they realized their efforts were futile, you were already stronger than they anticipated. Isolation had sharpened your insight, strengthened your resolve, and made you untouchable in ways they could never replicate. Every whisper they spread, every plan they plotted, only highlighted how ineffective they were against someone who thrived without external validation. Their greatest miscalculation was assuming that being alone was a weakness. In truth, it revealed the depth of your strength. While they invested energy in trying to confine you, you invested time in understanding yourself. Isolation didn't diminish you. It clarified, intensified, and empowered you. And when you emerged, it wasn't with the fragility they expected, but with the unshakable force of someone who had turned their attack into your ultimate advantage. Number 10. They didn't understand the price of targeting purity. When they targeted you, they didn't realize the danger of aiming at someone who carries integrity. Attacking someone corrupt is easy. Dirt blends with dirt, lies cover lies, and nobody notices the cracks. But when they aimed at you, someone who is clean in character and unshakable in truth, every move they made against you reflected back on them instead. Their efforts didn't diminish you. They highlighted their own flaws, their envy, and their insecurities in stark contrast to your steadiness. Their jealousy wasn't just misdirected, it became self-destructive. Every attempt to smear your name, every lie they whispered, every scheme they orchestrated exposed the very traits they wanted to hide in themselves. Attacking innocence has a way of amplifying the attacker's guilt. making their wrongdoing obvious to anyone paying attention. They thought that by aiming at you, they could manipulate the narrative, but the universe has a way of flipping that script. Their actions became confessions written in plain sight. The deeper irony is that their obsession forced them to escalate. The more they tried to bring you down, the more obvious it became that their energy was coming from a place of weakness, not strength. Every strategy, every whispered plot, every attempt to create chaos around you only revealed that they lacked the integrity, discipline, and foresight you embody naturally. Their envy didn't hide their character, it broadcast it. And while they were busy constructing traps, they were walking into the mirror of their own morality. Targeting someone pure isn't just a mistake, it's a spotlight that illuminates your own darkness. The more they pushed, the more transparent they became. It was never about defeating you. It was about showing everyone, even themselves, what they were willing to do out of envy. By choosing to attack someone clean, they underestimated the power of alignment, the force of truth, and the way innocence exposes corruption. Every blow they threw backfired, not because you fought harder, but because your foundation doesn't need defending. Their attacks collapse under their own weight. In their attempts to bury you, they unearthed themselves, proving in the most undeniable way that targeting purity comes with a price, and that price is always theirs to pay. Number 11. They mistook silence for weakness. While they were shouting, scheming, and making a scene, you stayed quiet, observing, calculating, and waiting. They assumed your silence was a sign of weakness, that you had no energy, no plan, no power to respond. That assumption was their fatal mistake. They couldn't see that your calm wasn't indecision, it was strategy. You didn't need to react to every insult, defend yourself at every turn, or prove your worth to those who were too blind to recognize it. Your patience was a weapon, and every moment they wasted trying to provoke a reaction only strengthened your position. Their noise made them predictable. Every lie, every exaggeration, every desperate attempt to provoke anger or fear in you became a blueprint for understanding their intentions and weaknesses. You didn't need to intervene. You were letting them reveal themselves piece by piece until the truth of their obsession and incompetence was laid bare. Every false move they made became evidence, not against you, but against them. They were building their own downfall while thinking they were building yours. They didn't understand that silence can carry weight far greater than words. While they were busy screaming over the room, your quiet presence commanded attention in a different way. People noticed consistency, strength, and calm, even if those orchestrating chaos didn't. Your silence allowed you to conserve energy, sharpen insight, and control the narrative without ever saying a word. It turned the tables so effectively that their attacks, intended to corner you, ended up cornering themselves. By the time they realized that their loud, frantic efforts weren't affecting you, it was too late. Their exhaustion, their miscalculations, and their exposure had already paved the way for your vindication. Every time they tried to bait you into reacting, you stayed still, letting the momentum of their own foolishness work in your favor. They mistook silence for weakness, but what they didn't see was that it was the most dangerous strength. You didn't need to fight. They were dismantling themselves while you simply watched, calculated, and prepared. In the end, the quiet one always has the last word, and in this case, your silence spoke louder than anything they could ever scream. Number 12. Their weapon became their punishment. Every scheme they set in motion to harm you has turned into a trap for themselves. The lies they crafted, meant to tarnish your name, now hang over them as proof of their deceit. Every manipulation, every whisper, every calculated move intended to weaken you has become evidence of their true character, and it is relentless. Their weaponized envy has no expiration date. It keeps circling back, exposing them to everyone who watches closely. The cruel irony is sharp. The strategies designed to bury you are the very things that will ensure their unraveling. They invested energy, time, and cunning into creating tools for your downfall, not realizing those tools carry a reflection of their intentions. Every false narrative they spread doesn't stay buried. It resurfaces, and each resurfacing highlights their dishonesty. Every scheme, Every backstab, every plan that was meant to lift them above you now serves as a mirror, showing them exactly who they are and what they've become in their desperation. Their punishment isn't a matter of external forces stepping in, it's self-inflicted. Their own strategies were designed without conscience, without foresight, without the understanding that targeting someone rooted in truth carries consequences that always circle back. What they meant to use as leverage has become a chain around their own necks. Lies reveal the liars, plots expose manipulators, and the energy they poured into attacking you has turned into a record of their obsession, weakness, and moral failure. And the more they attempt to cover their tracks, the heavier the weight of their own schemes becomes. Each denial, each defensive move, each attempt to rewrite history only digs the hole deeper. Their own hands, once used to craft deception, now hold the instruments of exposure. In the end, their downfall was never outside of them. It was always contained within their own creations. Every weapon they forge to wound you is built with flaws they cannot hide. What they thought would destroy you instead becomes the blueprint of their exposure. Their punishment was embedded in their own envy, and nothing, not even time or manipulation, can erase it. The very energy they invested in trying to harm you guarantees that they will be undone by what they themselves built. Number 13. They didn't realize that you were a test. Every action they took against you, every word spoken in malice, every plot they orchestrated had an underlying purpose they couldn't see. They were being tested. Life, circumstance, and your presence were holding up a mirror, and the mirror asked one simple question: who are you when confronted with someone stronger, purer, and more grounded than yourself? Their treatment of you wasn't random chaos. It was a challenge disguised as conflict, a measure of character they failed to recognize. Instead of rising to the occasion, instead of showing restraint, fairness, or integrity, they fell into the trap of envy, pettiness, and vindictiveness. Their reactions were a roadmap of their inner world. Each scheme, each insult, each attempt to manipulate or diminish you didn't just reveal their intentions toward you, it exposed the emptiness inside them, the fragility of their moral compass, and the dependence on comparison to feel significant. By attacking you, they failed the test not because they lacked cleverness, but because they lacked awareness and discipline. They chose the lowest path available, and that choice was louder than any action you could take in response. The irony is undeniable. Their punishment was built into the test itself. It wasn't simply that they targeted you and failed, they revealed themselves in the process. Every observer, every witness, every person watching the drama unfold could see the patterns, the obsession, and the moral bankruptcy on display. Their actions became a live demonstration of their character, their choices echoing far beyond the initial moment of conflict. The universe doesn't just punish envy, it exposes it, magnifying it until the world sees clearly what they chose to hide. You, on the other hand, passed your own test without even trying. Your patience, integrity, and restraint were proof that you were operating from a higher standard, a place they couldn't reach. While they were busy proving who they weren't, you were quietly proving who you are. Their failure is both punishment and revelation. It's punishment because their choices have consequences they cannot escape. It's revelation because the world now knows who they truly are, not because you exposed them, but because they exposed themselves. Their envy, their schemes, and their attacks became their own testimony, and the lesson is clear. Targeting someone aligned with truth isn't just dangerous, it's self-revealing. Number 14. They have to watch you outlive their narrative. The cruelest reality for them isn't just that they fail, it's that they have to watch you rise while knowing they tried to stop it. Every plot they launched, every lie they whispered, every scheme they coordinated was meant to keep you small, contained, or defeated. Instead, it became the fuel for your growth, and now they are trapped as witnesses to their own impotence. Their envy doesn't end with your vindication. It intensifies as they see how every attack only made you stronger, sharper, and more untouchable than before. There's a psychological weight to watching someone thrive after being targeted. It forces them to confront a truth they can't escape. Their actions didn't diminish you, they amplified your power. Every effort to control your narrative, to rewrite your story, or to limit your influence only provided evidence of your resilience. And the worst part for them is that this evidence isn't theoretical or hidden. It's right there, undeniable and public. They have to witness the exact person they tried to destroy, walking past the chaos they created, standing taller, moving smarter, and shining brighter. Their obsession becomes self-defeating. The more they focus on your rise, the more their envy grows. They replay their failures in their minds, each memory of a plotted attack now twisted into a reminder that their energy, their time, and their malice was useless. In trying to define you, they failed to define themselves, and watching you succeed without their permission only compounds that failure. The irony is sharp and unrelenting. They believed they could control perception, but in the end, you control it. They believed their actions could dictate your trajectory, but you dictate it yourself. Their narrative about you collapses under the weight of your truth and the reality of your achievements. And while they struggle with this, you move forward, untethered by their envy, untouchable by their schemes, and untarnished by their judgment. In witnessing your rise, they experience a silent, ongoing punishment. It's a lesson written in plain sight. Attempts to stop someone operating from truth never succeed. Every attack, every effort, every ounce of malice only proves one undeniable fact. They cannot contain what was never theirs to control. Your life becomes the final, unanswerable response, and they are forced to live with it. Every move they made against you, every scheme, every whisper, every attempt to diminish or control you has done nothing but reveal their weakness and amplify your strength. They underestimated your endurance, your source, and your clarity. They mistook silence for weakness, targeted purity without realizing the consequences, and bound themselves together with envy instead of integrity. Every attack, every lie, and every effort to bury you has backfired, becoming the evidence of their obsession, the blueprint of their downfall, and the amplifier of your rise. The most powerful truth is this: they can never touch the foundation that God, purpose, and resilience have built in you. Their energy, their focus, their jealousy, all of it has orbitally revolved around you, giving you strength, insight, and visibility that no opposition could ever take away. While they scramble to maintain a false narrative, you continue to grow, thrive, and move forward, untouchable, untarnished, and undeniable. Their failure is complete, not only because of your rise, but because every attempt they made to stop you now serves as proof of who they truly are. In the end, their downfall was inevitable the moment they targeted you collectively. They became their own punishment, their own exposure, and their own lesson. And you became stronger, sharper, more focused, and more unstoppable than ever. Every attack strengthened your foundation, every plot refined your path, and every whisper spread your name further than they could have imagined. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a story of triumph, of clarity, and of a power that cannot be duplicated or destroyed. They thought they could define your life, but it turns out their actions only revealed yours. Your rise is your answer, your vindication, and your legacy. And now, as they watch from the sidelines, forced to witness what they could not stop, it's undeniable. You were never in their category, and you never will be. If this message hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel to stay connected to the truths that empower, enlighten, and reveal the strength within you. Like this video to show your support. Comment below to share your thoughts and experiences, and share it with anyone who needs to see that no one can define or diminish their power. Your engagement helps spread the message and reminds others that resilience, clarity, and purpose always rise above envy and opposition. God bless you.